Fraud seems to creep into any transaction type these days, whether it's financial, retail, healthcare, and as we'll discuss today, real estate. Real estate fraud involves deceptive practices designed to mislead property buyers, sellers, lenders, or title insurers for financial gain. According to the FBI, real estate fraud losses reached over $350 million in 2022, a figure driven by sophisticated schemes such as wire fraud, mortgage fraud, and title fraud. As fraudsters grow increasingly adept at exploiting digital vulnerabilities, the frequency and scale of these crimes continue to rise, making real estate transactions a prime target for fraudsters who need to diversify their businesses just like any other. It's also a topic ripe for some of the identity verification technologies and practices that are in the market these days. With me today to have that conversation is Intellicheck CEO Brian Lewis. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Karen, happy to be here.
I have a feeling that my $350 million stat is probably not the right one. You probably have like great data to talk about how much of a problem this really is.
Yeah, we do. I think reported stats are always lower than actual stats. And I think the best way is to talk to the people who are experiencing this. And one of our partners in fighting crime is Doma Title. And they put out, some reports about what really is happening and where they're seeing it. And most of the time, what's happening is they are going after, as usual, most fraudsters, the elderly, going after non-residents, and they're going after empty lots. And, the real thing here is they're able to pretend to be you. Again, identity theft is the theme across all of this, and they sell your property out from under you. And the three biggest states being hit by this are California, Florida, and Texas, right? And you think about it, a lot of non-residents in those places, a lot of elderly in those places, and
a lot of people who want to move into those places. So it's
correct. So that makes it really easy. And most of the time, what is happening is you're looking at, you're not in person doing the transaction. It is remote.
Yeah, that's
in terms of what you're doing. So it makes it much easier to perpetuate this kind of crime. And one of the things that say that Doma has said was early in the year of 2024, they'd already surpassed 2023 fraud rates. And it's really high. Like the loss and the cost is very, very expensive.
How do you, like, when in the process is the fraud revealed?
When they, unfortunately, when somebody wants to go to, like if it's not caught ahead of time, when you want to go to your property and now you say that somebody's saying it isn't yours. There was, somebody with an expensive lake house just up in North Carolina their house was sold under them, and the HOA there can't even help them out because the title has been transferred. So it's a rough thing to then, if you get your identity stolen because somebody opened up a credit card at a retail store, it's one thing. But then being able to say, wait a minute, I didn't transfer my title. It's a lot harder. There's many, many more loops to go through. And what the title companies say, their average loss is, and this is, again, from Doma, is $500,000.
Wow.
So
that's the average.
Trivial, right? Yeah, it is not trivial at all.
So you obviously, the property owner doesn't know until the moving truck pulls up and says, "I'm here." And you're like, "Why are you here with your moving truck?" But what is the fix for this problem? I mean, I know it's identity verification, but why are these scams perpetuating?
I think, again, it's the same reason that these scams perpetuate across everything. So much of that data. Again, I got my fifth, I think, letter this year about, hey, you've been involved in a data hack, right? I think the last time we spoke, we were talking about the United Healthcare one, right? So now everybody knows every medication I take. Okay, good, right? But that makes it that much easier to say that you are me if you're trying to pretend and steal my identity, right? So all that data is making it much easier to build a more substantive case that it is Brian doing the transaction. And, again, our posit as our company is that prove the plastic is real, right? Every single person knows that you check into a hotel. Can I see your ID? You want to get on a plane? Can I see your ID? You want to open up a credit account? See my ID. When I sold my last house, the lawyer wanted to see my ID. They have no idea if it's real.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
it's like the days where you had to turn your card around and have somebody say, "Let me see your signature," and you're like,
Right.
"Okay, whatever."
I just got, I could keep going through because I have so many of these now that, cops and bars keep giving me. This is my new stack that I just got fresh. These things look so real.
Yeah.
You can't tell, right? And I lived in New Jersey for the majority of my life. I worked in Manhattan for the majority of that time. I couldn't tell you what a New York driver's license looked like. So how is, I'm supposedly coming from New York and going to New Jersey and buying property. How is that title person supposed to know? Is that a real New Jersey license, or I'm sorry, New York license? So that's part of why technology has to get involved in all of this. If you are not using sophisticated tools to see if that plastic is real, you're going to get stuck.
But what about the real estate agent that's selling property that they're not supposed to sell?
They don't know. In a way, it's not. Again, it's sort of not their fault. It's the same thing I'd say is how is it that the store clerk who issued instant credit didn't know? They can't tell, right? And they're relying on two things generally, right? If you think about whenever you go anywhere to get credit, to prove who you are, they ask you for two things always, right? Government issued ID, and then either your full or the last four digits of your social security number. And those things are cheap, right? Social security numbers you can buy for like, 1 million of them for like $20. Then the driver's license you can buy for $40. So it just doesn't work anymore. And most people aren't trained, right? And I would say, does anybody who might be listening to this who doesn't live in Minnesota know what a Minnesota license looks like? I have no idea. So how do you tell? You need technology to do it.
So is this mostly when property is being transferred remotely? So it's from one state to another state? Or is this also a local situation?
It tends to happen from what we've seen, and again, talking to our customers, it tends to be in places that have high turnover. Again, non-resident or property, like, just land lots, that kind of thing, because that makes it easier. If trying to sell somebody's house, like there's definitely stealing the title of people that live in houses, but that's, again, the same way you can protect yourself, or the title insurance companies can, is to make sure that we know the plastic is real. But where we see it happening most is, again, very high turnover areas, vacation places.
I was thinking vacation.
Hilton Head, Bluffton, the areas around here where people aren't here all the time. It's easier to sell because nobody knows who really owns it, right? You don't see the person all that often. So you'll see the same thing on the Jersey Shore. We've seen incidents of it out in the Hamptons. It's sort of vacation places, and then also places with just open land.
Is it seasonal? Does it happen, vacation season on the shore, the spring and the summer, now around the winter with ski season? Does it have a seasonal pattern, this fraud?
From our stats, we're seeing it's fairly regular because they kind of know what the property type is and they go after it. So we're not yet seeing any kind of seasonality to it. We're just seeing it being very consistent.
What's the source of their data?
I'm sorry, whose data?
The fraudsters, how do they know?
Oh, yeah, it's easy. That's like if you think about all the records that have been stolen, right? The Identity Theft Resource Center has said that, already this year we've had more records stolen than in last year, right? Again, already that was halfway through the year, I think, when they put that report out. So they know where you live, they know what it is, and it's kind of easy. I mean, we're not talking about kind of knuckleheads doing this. We're talking about folks that are sophisticated criminals, and it's easy enough. There's plenty of places you can go. I mean, even just like Zillow.com or Realtor.com, you can see what the property is. You can go to VRBO or Airbnb and see that it's mostly a rental, and then you target those things.
Interesting. So how does the title insurance company validate that it is? Because to your point, how do you know what a Minnesota driver's license look like unless you're from there?
Yeah, I
So,
do.
so what's the process?
So yeah, look, so we've got, I think, 4 of the 5 top title insurance companies are using us, then another company that provides the software that a lot of the smaller title companies use that uses us. And what they're doing is, whether you are standing in front of me or you are across the country, they basically will just send a text to your phone, which then kicks off our process. And they can go everything from just the ID to facial recognition to make sure that the ID is real and I am in fact holding, the document.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're doing to make sure that it is a real person, because that is how all this crime gets, perpetuated.
Yep.
Super cheap, get a fake ID that the cops can't tell that it isn't real. And therefore, I will never have a chance of knowing, is it or isn't it real, as just the store clerk or the title company person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the technology, I think, that helps everybody figure it out and stop the crime.
Yep. Has there ever been a situation where you've gone through that technology and you've exposed a fraudster, like right in the
Oh,
middle of a transaction?
yes. And yeah, look, I'm going to tell you thousands of times a day, whether it is at, I'm going to get a credit card, at a retailer, or in this case, or I'm going to buy a car. So it happens all the time. Generally, what our clients will do, they do not want to get confrontational with the
Yeah,
criminal.
I would imagine. Yes.
Yeah, so they're just gonna be like, hey, we're having a problem authenticating this document. Do you have something else? And what they tell us then generally is the person just walks away, right? Because they realize that they've been caught in a crime.
Mm-hmm. And then what do you do to make sure that, I mean, is there something you can do to flag that this is a bad ID and communicate that across your network, that if this person shows up with an ID that they're on the blacklist?
That is something we're certainly talking to our customers about, is how do we share this data? I think, personally, I would also like to know, and how
Yeah.
do we get it back to the individual?
Mm-hmm.
When we go and look at the people that, when it says it was Brian Lewis trying to do this, the address and everything matches, right? So I would love to know that somebody just tried to steal my
Yeah, me
identity.
too. Me
Yeah,
too.
so we're talking to our customers about how do we then pool this data and then also share it with the consumers, because I think it is truly important for the consumer to know that somebody has tried, because then you can protect yourself a lot more. I mean, protection is kind of hard and painful because you got to lock down your credit, and it's hard to lock it down and it's hard to open it back up. But if I knew somebody was coming after me, because this is the one thing that we also see, is that if somebody tries you once, they're going to hit you hard over the course of probably the next 45 to 60 days. They're going to try and get as much as they can, because it takes about that long for you to realize that somebody has taken your credit. So if we could put the information out and let the public know, I think it'd be a very important thing. And again, that's what we're talking to our customers about now.
So, do you expect to have more of these incidences? I mean, this is probably a stupid question, because the home sales are now supposed to, as interest rates fall, more activity in buying and selling real estate. So, shouldn't title companies be sort of prepared for
Yeah.
additional volume, therefore additional opportunities for fraudsters to step in?
Yeah, I mean, across every industry that we're in, we see the fraud rates are the same, no matter, like, whether it's a small credit union or a title company or one of our big banks. So as volumes go up, we always see the fraud attempts go up because it's sort of in the same percentage of whatever it was that, it had been previously. So, if it's 100,000 and now it's 1 million, you're going to see fraud rates go up.
Wow. Does the economic environment create more of an opportunity for fraudsters to prey on people? And I ask that because, people are looking at their spending in different ways. Maybe they're not spending as much. Maybe they're spending differently. Do fraudsters find this as an opportunity to double down on fraud? Or is it not a good environment for them? Does the economic environment have any impact on fraudster behavior?
I think what we saw, I think COVID was a really good example of how fraudsters, they got to stay in business too.
Right.
So fraud rates went up during COVID because people weren't shopping, but the fraudsters were, right? So you definitely see that the economic climate doesn't necessarily mean fraud doesn't happen. So they're going to go out and they need to make their money, and they are going to continue to do fraud. So if normal economic activity is going down, but the fraudsters still need to make money, as a percentage of what you see happening, it goes up.
But there are opportunities for intervention so that they're not as successful. Their business models are challenged.
And certainly what we see is, what I call the underbanked, they get hit more during these types of things because there's less data sources, I'd say, to prove who they are. And the companies that rely on the old kind of school knowledge-based authentication and all those types of things, it's easier to do the underbanked because they got less data to go back and check.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the real estate fraud is shocking. I mean, you don't think about real estate fraud in quite the dimension that you've described it, but it's obviously massive. And, it's one of those things that unless you're paying attention, and you visit your beach house next summer to find someone else living there. I mean, obviously that's a pretty extreme anecdote, but it's really eye-opening. I think it's just another example of the identity theft implications and the opportunity to prevent it.
Yep, agreed.
All right, Brian, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time. Love it, Karen. Thank you.
Bye now.